Part 1. Forgotten Heroes. Jess shrugged, picked up the handheld microchip scanner from the desk. Her movements were quick but careful. She had seen so many dogs come through the shelter, but there was something different about Rex and Molly. They had been there for years, long before she arrived, and today felt like the day their story would change. First, she knelt beside Rex. His large, tired body lay curled in a corner, but his brown eyes followed Jess's every move. She pressed the scanner gently to his neck, holding her breath as the familiar beep echoed in the still room. The screen displayed the usual information. Rex, a stray, no known owner, found near the industrial park 8 years ago. Nothing unusual. Jess's heart sank slightly as she moved on to Molly, the golden retriever who lay by the window, her fur pale in the dim light. Jess repeated the process, pressing the scanner to Molly's neck. The device beeped once more, but then something strange happened. The screen flashed. Jess squinted at the words that appeared on the display. Molly, stray, no owner, abandoned near the highway, and then registered to the United States Army Canine Unit. Jess froze, her hand still holding the scanner. Her pulse quickened. "Dr. Harper, you need to see this," she whispered, almost in disbelief, as she handed the scanner to the shelter's director, Dr. Harper. Dr. Harper took the device, her expression changing as she glanced down at the screen. Her breath caught in her throat. "What?" she murmured, more to herself than to Jess. Molly was a military dog. Her mind raced. How was this possible? Jess, equally shocked, looked at the screen again. There's no way she's been here for 8 years. Why would the military register a dog as a stray? Before they could process what they'd just discovered, Jess quickly ran the scanner over Rex's neck again. The device chirped, and another unexpected entry appeared. Rex, registered to the United States Army Canine Unit. Dr. Harper's mind reeled. Both dogs were military canines. They had been here for all these years, forgotten, lost in a shelter among countless others. How had no one known? "We need to call the military," Jess said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Harper nodded, a sense of urgency flooding her chest. "Get me the number for the nearest base. We need answers." Part 2. The Unfolding Story. For the next few hours, the shelter was a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Harper and Jess made phone calls, scoured through old records, and pieced together the history of the 2 dogs. What they discovered was both incredible and heartbreaking. Rex and Molly had served together in a specialized Army Canine unit, providing vital support to soldiers in war zones. Their primary mission had been to detect explosives, help with search and rescue operations, and protect the men and women they worked with. They had been trained together, deployed together, and had become inseparable. But then, something went horribly wrong during one particularly dangerous mission. Details were scarce, but records indicated that the dogs had been separated from their handlers during a chaotic extraction. They were listed as missing in action and presumed dead. Somehow, against all odds, Rex and Molly had survived. The circumstances were unclear. There was no official record of how they managed to escape the battlefield or where they had been in the years that followed, but they found their way back to civilian life. Through a series of twists of fate, they ended up abandoned as strays and eventually brought to the shelter. Dr. Harper and Jess were stunned. They had nearly made the decision to euthanize the dogs, unaware of the incredible history that lay behind them. After hours of research, Dr. Harper was able to reach military officials. She gave them the information she had gathered, and within hours, arrangements were made for Rex and Molly to be transferred to a special retirement program for military working dogs. It was clear now that the 2 heroes deserved so much more than the life they had been living in the shelter. The next morning, a military representative, Sergeant Mitchell, arrived to escort the dogs to their new home. Dr. Harper stood by the kennel as Rex and Molly were led out side by side, just as they had always been together. "They're heroes," Sergeant Mitchell said, shaking his head in disbelief as he looked down at the two older dogs. "They saved each other." As Dr. Harper watched them leave the shelter, she felt a profound sense of relief wash over her. Rex and Molly had come so close to the end, only to be saved in the nick of time. Their bond had carried them through the darkest of times. Part 3. A Second Chance. Weeks passed, and Dr. Harper received regular updates from Sergeant Mitchell about Rex and Molly's progress. The retirement facility where they were now staying was an oasis, a far cry from the chaos of the shelter and the horrors of war. The facility was set on vast, peaceful grounds, with wide-open fields, shady trees, and a small pond where the dogs could cool off during the warmer days. Rex had been given medication for his arthritis, and though he would never move as quickly as he once had, the treatments had helped him regain some strength. Molly, too, was recovering from her heart condition, and the facility's dedicated veterinarians ensured she was receiving the best possible care. The two dogs spent their days together, lounging in the sun, just as they always had. But now they had room to roam, freedom, and the peace they had always deserved. It was a life they had earned through their service, loyalty, and sacrifice. One day, Dr. Harper received a call from Sergeant Mitchell that would change everything again. "We found their handler," he said, excitement in his voice. "The soldier who worked with Rex and Molly. He thought they were lost forever. When we told him they were alive, well, let's just say he's eager to see them." Dr. Harper was stunned. "You found him?" "It wasn't easy," Sergeant Mitchell replied. "The military doesn't track retired handlers the same way they do with the dogs, but we got lucky. He's coming to see them next week." The idea of Rex and Molly being reunited with their old handler filled Dr. Harper's heart with both joy and anxiety. Would the dogs remember him? Would they recognize the person who had been their partner in the field for so many years? The day of the reunion arrived, and Dr. Harper couldn't resist going to the retirement facility herself. She arrived early, her heart racing with anticipation. The handler, Sergeant Chris Reynolds, was a tall man with broad shoulders and a kind smile. He had worked closely with Rex and Molly for several years, depending on them for protection and life-saving assistance during their deployment. When Sergeant Reynolds walked into the courtyard, his gaze immediately landed on the two older dogs lying in the shade. His steps faltered, and for a moment, he seemed to lose himself in the memories. Rex and Molly lifted their heads as they heard footsteps, their eyes locking on the figure before them. It was Rex who reacted first. His ears perked up, his body tensed, and then, with a slow but deliberate movement, he stood. Molly followed, her golden fur shimmering in the soft light. The moment was electric. It was as if the years had melted away. Rex's tail began to wag, and suddenly, without warning, he rushed forward, nearly stumbling with excitement. Molly, too, rushed to his side, her tail wagging frantically. They pressed their heads into Sergeant Reynolds's chest, and tears filled his eyes as he wrapped his arms around them both. "I thought I lost you," Sergeant Reynolds whispered, his voice cracking. "I thought you were gone." Dr. Harper stood back, her heart swelling with emotion as she watched the reunion unfold. Rex and Molly hadn't just survived. They had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the one person who had been their world during their years of service. In the months that followed, Sergeant Reynolds visited Rex and Molly often. He took them on long walks, played with them in the fields, and spent quiet moments with them by the pond. Their bond had never been broken, and now, in the twilight of their lives, they were finally able to enjoy the peace they had so richly earned. Dr. Harper continued to visit the dogs, often finding herself overwhelmed with emotion each time she saw the three of them together: Rex, Molly, and Surgeon Reynolds. It was the happy ending that Dr. Harper had never expected, but one that was well deserved. As she watched them from a distance, it became clear to her that Rex and Molly's story was far from over. It had been filled with hardships and heartache, but in the end, love and loyalty had brought them home. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. We release a brand new episode every day, so stay tuned. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you.